On September 16, 2025, the British royal family gathered to say goodbye to Catherine, the Duchess of Kent, in the shadowy grandeur of Westminster Cathedral, where the echoes of old anthems still reverberate like unsaid regrets. A woman who had served in the royal family for decades with a gentle grace. Not only did her death at age 92 signal the end of an era, but it also sparked a new tempest in the House of Windsor. Eyes were attracted to a brief, piercing moment amid the solemn chants and incense of the first Catholic royal funeral in modern history, rather than the elaborate coffin or the tear-streaked faces of kin. The gathering mourners felt uneasy as Prince Andrew, the disgraced Duke of York, gazed at Catherine, Princess of Wales, with what witnesses later described as a death stare, cold and unwavering. That expression spoke a great deal about long-standing grudges, unsaid charges, and the broken ties that had long afflicted the family. Power struggles inside the palace walls would be redefined by what transpired next. Courtiers whispered of a new age of uncompromising power when Prince William, the dependable successor to the throne, struck his uncle with a premeditated blow just days after this frozen scene. This wasn't just a slight. It was a proclamation. Beginning with the revered Christmas in Sandringham, William had drawn a line in the sand, calling for Andrew to be banished from important family events. It was an obvious message. You risk being betrayed by the future king, particularly when it comes to defending his wife. Questions are swirling over the temperatures like autumn mist as the world reels from this bold decision. What was behind Andrew's poisonous look? How did it reveal the bare nerves of a scandal-ravaged monarchy? Furthermore, by exercising such power over his father, King Charles III, William has not only protected his inner circle, but also made it clear that he wants a less tolerant and leaner monarchy. In a family where loyalty is valuable and betrayal is the greatest cost, this incident, which is taking place against a backdrop of loss and tradition, pulls back the velvet curtain. The look was more than an insult to Catherine, who has always been the elegant personification of royal fortitude. It served as a reminder of the evils that still exist in the halls of authority. Shadows left by Andrew's damaged reputation. However, a protector who had been forged in the furnace of personal adversity surfaced in William's reaction. From his personal struggles with the media to his steadfast support of his wife during her medical difficulties, the entire impact of this conflict becomes clear as information from palace insiders surfaces, exposing not only a family conflict, but also a significant upheaval in the delicate balance of the monarchy. Is it possible that the following generation will take over at this point and cut the deadwood to ensure their survival? Or does it run the risk of widening the rifts that threaten to overthrow centuries of formality and etiquette? Williams's counterpunch has ignited the royal narrative, directing everyone's attention toward a future in which charity gives way to command, even though the look may have silenced the cathedral nave. On that clear September morning, the weight of history and the aroma of beeswax candles filled the air within Westminster Cathedral. In the grand scheme of things, Catherine, Duchess of Kent, had been more than a supporting character. Her funeral was a historic event because of her 1994 conversion to Catholicism, a silent act of personal conviction. This was the first Windsor service of its kind in living memory. The procession was led by King Charles III. His presence is a moving tribute to the interfaith ties forged during his rule. Mozart and Duroff, performed by the chorus, soared like pleas for peace. However, when Prince Andrew arrived with his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson at his side in a convoy that attracted attention and caused muttering among the audience outside, reconciliation seemed far off. It was an uncommon glimpse for the Duke, who has limited his public appearances to the most private family events, such as his parents' funerals, since he was stripped of military titles and patronages in 2022. It was no coincidence that he was here for the memorial service for a distant cousin via marriage. According to insiders, it was a conscious attempt to restore some sense of normalcy, to stand side by side with family members as though Virginia Jeffries' claims and the Epstein controversy were minor details in a faraway chapter. However, normalcy was elusive. Onlookers, who had become used to his isolation at Royal Lodge, gasped as Andrew and Fergie, both 65 and proudly inseparable despite their divorce, filed in with the royals. Andrew's audacity looked eager to fill the hole left by Queen Camilla's last-minute illness withdrawal, which only increased the tension. The scene was photographed with unwavering clarity. With a police escort, Andrew, dressed in a solemn black suit, walked past obstacles with a mask of practiced somnolence on his face. Under that, however, Courtier saw a glimmer of resistance, a man unwilling to slip in silence. This had the undertone of a challenge and was Andrew's first significant appearance with the working royals since his downfall. For William and Catherine, who were sitting near the front in a prominent position with their kids. The purpose of the event was to commemorate a life of quiet dedication. In contrast to the family's more extravagant periods, the Duchess had personified the gentler aspects of the monarchy through her support of the arts and subdued generosity. However, Andrew's closeness transformed respect into discomfort. Eyes flitted to the pews rather than the altar as the requiem service began, with a Scottish piper reciting the lament from Queen Elizabeth II's own departure. Andrew stood like a ghost from the past, right behind the whales in the post-service parade. From other aristocracy to Vatican dignitaries, rumors circulated about the spectacle of it all. Was this an intentional reminder of his ancestry, or was it Andrew's way of showing mercy? Later, palace sources disclosed that the invitations had been sent out in a covert manner, anticipating a low-key response. However, Andrew's decision to bring Fergie, ever the socialite, with him added a level of spectacle that contrasted with the seriousness of the day. This reconnection of broken branches exposed the monarchy's continuous battle in the lofty silence of the nave, where every rustle of cloth heightened the drama. How to strike a balance between the demands of contemporary accountability and the draw of tradition. Andrew's return was more of a lighted fuse, waiting for the spark that would light the powder keg, than a homecoming for a family that lives on the illusion of harmony. It was quick, but the coldness of it hung like frost on stained glass. When the last blessings were over and the royal family stood up to leave Westminster Cathedral, Prince Andrew's gaze fell on Catherine with a ferocity that verged on aggression. Witnesses reportedly recalled the incident with a collective chill, ranging from keen-eyed photographers to silent diners in the back pews. In viral videos that went viral on social media in a matter of hours, the death stare was dubbed. It wasn't a casual mistake. Catherine turned momentarily to listen to the piper's melancholy melody, but Andrew's penetrating, unblinking gaze lingered for a few beats too long, breaching the curtain of propriety. Those close to her noticed the brief hardening of her posture, a quiet shield against the incursion, but her response was a gentle tilt of the head, always the diplomat. The background of Andrew's contentious past was what made this stare so intense. Insiders perceived it as a salvo in a war of perceptions, but to the uninitiated, it may have passed as familial discomfort. Ever the troubled one, Andrew has always harbored resentment for the whales, whom he believes are responsible for his seclusion. There are still rumors of him mumbling privately at Royal Lodge about William's harsh attitude and Catherine's impending rise as challenges to his influence. Andrew's jaw was set, his eyes narrowing as if evaluating a competition rather than a family, as seen in the grainy video taken from a congregant's phone. Through matrimony. Even though she was still recovering from cancer treatment, Catherine looked stunning in a fitted black coat and was the symbol of the monarchy's rebirth. She is a source of stability. Many people found it offensive and disrespectful to point such a glance in her direction during the sacred time of mourning. By evening, hashtags like Defend Kate and That Andrew Stare were trending all over the world on social media. Analysts analyzed the body language. Andrew's little forward tilt and his ex-wife's sideways glance, which seemed to indicate that she had seen his error. According to one widely shared explanation on X by a royal observer, it was a barely disguised form of scorn, connected to rumors of financial strain at Andrew's Windsor house and his felt slights from being denied access to family assets. The assembly, which was made up of clerics, cousins, and commoners who were given special access, went silent in shock. In regard to the tension, even the last note of the choir seemed to falter. For Catherine, who has steadfastly handled her fair share of public pitfalls, this was a novel remark that highlighted the personal costs associated with royal proximity. However, it also brought attention to her strength, transforming what might have been a weakness into evidence of her tenacity. The glare lingered in the air, an unseen thread tugging at the family's seams as the group moved toward the exit. It wasn't just being impolite. It was a threat to the healing story that the Windsor so fervently promotes and a mirror to unresolved misdeeds. Unaware or indifferent to the fact that the odds were stacked against him, Andrew had wagered on provocation in that frozen exchange. It was more than shock that left the congregation unable to speak. Before the storm, everyone took a collective breath. Before a word was said, Prince William's face told the story. The Prince of Wales, always the sentinel, moved indiscernibly as the death glare played out just feet away, his wide shoulders creating a wall between his wife and the cold. His face was a thundercloud gathering, according to witnesses, with his jaw clenched beneath the morning black exterior and his eyes flashing with a protectiveness refined by years of media sieges and personal grudges. This was no disinterested bystander. This was a future king, a spouse, and a father whose patience with destructive family dynamics had long since vanished. William made a small turn, his hand brushing Catherine's elbow in a silent show of support, and the moment was recorded in a now iconic Reuters photo that showed Andrew lurking just behind the newlyweds. He has been characterized by this type of innate defense since he was a young lad. He used to protect his mother from paparazzi flashes, but now he had to defend his mother from his blood relatives. Within a day, palace rumors that were leaked to tabloids depicted seething anger. A close friend of the Wales family confessed, William was livid, not only for Kate, but also for the sheer magnitude of the situation, transforming a funeral into his own personal vendetta. The service had already tested his composure. Andrew's unannounced flair for drama, arriving with Fergie in tow and drawing gasps from the pavement throng, had set a discordant tone. But the stare that crossed into sacred territory, William, who has shouldered the monarchy's burdens with a pragmatism bordering on ruthlessness, saw it as the final straw in a bale of betrayals. His history with Andrew is laced with frost. The 2019 Christmas exclusion after the Epstein photos surfaced. The 2022 title revocations that William reportedly championed behind closed doors. Yet until now, protocol had demanded a veneer of civility, especially at rites like this, where the Duke's attendance was a nod to blood over blemish. No longer. As the family emerged onto the cathedral steps, William's body language screamed volumes. He angled his frame to eclipse Andrew from view, engaging King Charles in low conversation while Catherine composed herself with a wave to well wishes. Viral clips dissected by body language experts on morning shows highlighted the micro-expressions: a furrowed brow, a tightened grip on his order of service, the deliberate step forward that isolated his uncle. For William, this fury was multifaceted. It stemmed from protectiveness toward Catherine, whose grace under fire has made her the family's emotional anchor. It echoed his own scars. The loss of Diana amplifying his aversion to unchecked entitlement, and it reflected a strategic calculus. Andrew's antics risked tainting the Wales's carefully curated image of modernity and merit. In the car's hushed interior en route to the private reception, sources say William's first call was to a trusted advisor, laying groundwork for what would become his boldest palace power play yet. The heir's reaction was not impulsive. It was the spark of a man ready to wield the throne's shadow as a sword, ensuring that one ill-judged glance would echo through the halls of power for seasons to come. In that raw surge of anger, William didn't just react, he recalibrated. By the evening of September 17th, as the funeral's echoes faded into London's twilight, Prince William had transformed personal outrage into institutional edict. In a private audience at Buckingham Palace, he presented King Charles with an ultimatum that courtiers are calling the most audacious assertion of heir's prerogative in a generation. Andrew goes, or the monarchy does. It was a stark binary delivered not in thunder, but in the measured tones of inevitability, underscoring William's growing dominion over the family's narrative. The demand, as detailed in leaks to glossy weeklies, centered on a comprehensive freeze-out. No invitations to Sandringham for Christmas, no Easter reprieves at Windsor, and financially the screws turned subtler but no less firm. Whispers abound of teeny reviews for Royal Lodge, that 30-room beam funded by sovereign coffers with aides floating relocation to a humbler Frogmore cottage once Harry and Meghan's ill-fated perch. Andrew's military pension already clawed back sees no reprieve, while Fergie's patronages face quiet audits lest Epstein's ghost resurface in donor ledgers. The Stairs' legacy here is personal devastation masked as policy. Andrew, 65 and unmorted, has railed privately against Wills's witch hunt, sources say, viewing the ban as payback for perceived slights. From his Epstein denials to his loyalty to the late Queen. Yet his defiance, that same bravado that birthed the death stare, now isolates him further. Fergie, battling her own cancers, offers ballast. But even she senses the tides turn, confiding to friends of a family at war with itself. Publicly, the York's Project Defiance, joint appearances at lesser events, Fergie's memoir teases of unvarnished truths, but the exile bites. No longer the jovial uncle at Trooping the Color, Andrew becomes a footnote. His Windsor walk's solitary echoes. For the children, Beatrice and Eugenie, the ripple is wrenching. Torn between loyalties, their own low-profile lives now collateral in the clash. Beatrice's budding diplomatic whispers falter under scrutiny, while Eugene's Hollywood ties strain against royal residue. The ultimatum's genius lies in its precision. It punishes without spectacle, eroding influence through absence. Andrew's retorts leaked via allies decry ungrateful youth, but they ring hollow against William's mandate. In this fallout, the York enclave shrinks, a microcosm of the monarchy's broader cull, where survival demands not just blood, but fealty. The stair may have been impulsive, but its cost is a dynasty's quiet disassembly, one excluded place setting at a time. King Charles III, architect of the slimmed-down monarchy, now navigates its sharpest paradox, balancing fraternal sentiment against filial force. William's ultimatum thrust him into a vice, his brother's pleading eyes clashing with his son's steely gaze, all under the glare of a nation hungry for decisiveness. At 76, with his own cancer battle etching lines of weariness, Charles had envisioned a reign of harmony, pruning excess while preserving essence. Andrew, the sibling he once shielded through scandals, represented the excess incarnate. Yet blood's pool lingered from shared childhood romps to the Queen's final graces. The funeral had been Charles's olive branch, a tacit allowance for Andrew's presence at this Catholic milestone, honoring Catherine's faith without fanfare. But the stair shattered that fragile accord, forcing Charles to confront the chasm. Indulge Andrew and risk alienating William, the monarchy's beating heart, rebuke him, and betray a bond forged in palace nurseries. Sources depict the post-funeral conclave as a monarch's crucible. Charles pacing Clarence House's antechambers, aides hovering like shadows. William's words delivered with heir's authority resonated with inevitability. Exile Andrew to preserve the crown's luster, or watch public faith erode under renewed York taint. Charles, ever the conciliator, acquiesced not from weakness but wisdom, recognizing his son's command of the zeitgeist. Polls affirm it. 68% view William as the family's future against Andrew's 12% favorability nard. The king's compliance manifests in silences. No palace denial of the Christmas ban. No use of York mentions in court circulars. Yet it ghouls. Charles's vision, articulated in 2022, Ascension speeches sought a relevant monarchy, inclusive yet efficient, where even wayward brothers might redeem through quiet contrition. William's blade cuts cleaner, prioritizing optics over olive branches. A generational pivot from Charles's eco-diplomacy to Wellesian pragmatism. The bind extends to policy. Charles resists formal eviction, citing constitutional niceties, but yields ground on events, hoping Andrew's discretion suffices. Fergie's sidelining adds irony. Her warmth once a child's favorite, now a liability in William's ledger. For the sovereign, this is less betrayal than baton pass. A reluctant yielding to the heir who mirrors his resolve, but tempers it with youth's impatience. Whispers of paternal pride mingle with melancholy. Charles confiding to Camilla of the son surpassing the father. In this tension, the stair's true victim emerges. Unity's illusion cracked by a glance, mended uneasily by mandate. Charles's navigation, graceful yet grudging, underscores the throne's evolution, where brotherly bonds bend to the inexorable march of succession. As the dust settles on Westminster steps, Prince William's strike against Andrew illuminates a horizon where the monarchy sheds its excesses like autumn leaves, emerging leaner, fiercer, and fiercely protective. This is no isolated feud, but a harbinger of the Wales era, one where personal affronts to Catherine become institutional imperatives and family loyalty is measured in deeds, not degrees of kinship. The implications ripple outward, fortifying the core while warning peripherals, align or atrophy. For the working royals, William's model promises relief, channeling resources to the Magnificent Seven while quarantining scandals. Charities once patronized by Andrew pivot to fresher faces like Beatrix's measured foray, but under stricter oversight. Public sentiment gauged in post-funeral surveys applauds the purge, with 72% endorsing tough love to safeguard relevance. Yet shadows loom. Andrew's marginalization risks martyr narratives, fueling anti-monarchist tracks that decry elitist infighting. Across Europe, peers in Sweden and Denmark watch wearily, their own thinnings less dramatic, pondering if Britain's bold strokes invite backlash. For Catherine, the beneficiary, it cements her as untouchable, her recovery narrative intertwined with empowerment, inspiring women worldwide to demand boundaries in gilded cages. William's assertiveness, once critiqued as aloof, now shines as stewardship. His no time for nonsense ethos a balm for a fatigued public. Speculation swirls. Will this extend to Harry thawing transatlantic frosts, or harden lines against all outliers? As Christmas approaches, Sandringham's table sets York's. The message resonates. The crown endures not through indulgence, but ironclad intent. William has not just avenged a stare. He has redrawn the family's map, charting a course where duty trumps dynasty's dregs. The monarchy tested a new stance poised for reinvention. Its future a canvas painted in resolve. What say you, reader?